My name is Silvia Resnik, and I'm a psychedelic integration and life coach. And I'm so excited to share a soulful conversation with Pearl today. I'm happy to be here.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Lorenza, and we are back for another episode of Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And I always love to be open, honest with all of you. So if you're listening to this may or may not resonate with you, our session today. But I believe that we all find different ways to take care of ourselves. And so today's going to be no different. I want you to grab a cup of tea. That's my preference. A cup of coffee if you want, and a notebook because you're going to want to take notes. However, if you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel because you can always come back and read the show notes later. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe below. But again, my name is Pearl Sharenza, and I am the founder of Women's Successful Living and this amazing Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And today, our host is Silvia Resnik. She is a life purpose coach and founder of Simple Life Journey. She guides women who feel empty behind perfect lives back to authenticity, joy, and inner freedom. Inspired by her transformational time in Tanzania, ooh, that sounds like a blast, she blends coaching with Maasai wisdom and co-founded Empower Her to support Maasai women and girls. And I just want to welcome you to the show today, Silvia. Nice to have you.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here and to see you and to talk to you.
Yay! And tell everybody where you're coming in from. I love everybody to understand that I have guests come in from all over the world. So where are you in the world today?
I'm currently in Austria, in Graz. This is where Arnold Schwarzenegger is born or was born. And so, yeah, this is where I am right now. And I'm living between here and Tanzania. I go back in 1 month. I'm so excited. Yeah, I just booked the ticket.
Yay!
Yes.
That sounds amazing. We're going to talk about that too, because I want to know
Mhm.
all about that and that back
Yeah.
and forth and what you're doing. So, okay, so I always start the show with one question because people often ask me, Pearl, like, do you have any questions? What can I expect? I'm like, you can expect a conversation. That's all we're going to have. We're going to talk about you and what you do and why you do it. However, I always like to introduce our guest and myself to little Silvia. I want to take us back. And Silvia, I want you to tell us what little Silvia was like. What did she love doing as a little girl? What was life like for her? Because I had a guest on here, and I'm going to give Bill credit. He talked on my show recently how my normal growing up is different than your normal growing up. So what you thought was normal may not seem normal to me. So when we talk to and visit and get introduced to little Silvia, tell us what normal was like for her and her growing up. What did she want to be when she grew up, and how does that correlate to who you are today?
That's a beautiful question. So when I grew up, I was very creative. I was very much in my own fantasy world. I actually had a little bit of a difficult upbringing because I'm an alone-born twin. So my twin sister was always missing. I didn't know it back then, but I felt it. And I was always a little bit of a melancholic child. And also my parents, they got divorced when I was around 5, 6 years old, something like that. And I don't really remember living alone with my mom because then my stepfather came in and then my stepsister was born. And yeah, so we had our struggles, but we are happy now. We have reconciled. So yeah, this was my upbringing. It was not as easy as it should be. Let's put it like that. And what I wanted to be.
Yeah, what did you want to? So what? No, you're good. What did you want? What did little Sylvia want to be when she grew up, and how does that correlate to who you are today?
I actually don't really remember what I was dreaming about. I remember when I was around 3 or 4, I said I want to build bathtubs. I don't know why I did that, and I wanted to have an apartment in Vienna with giraffes and elephants. So the African thing was already there, the African connection somehow. And later on, I wanted to become a kindergarten teacher like my mom, but I became it, but it was not really what fulfilled me, to be honest. Yeah, so it's a mix. I don't know.
I love that. It's so I wrote down
Yeah,
something you didn't correlate to, but we're going to talk about is a creative fantasy world, right? Because some
yeah,
people are going to listen to what we're going to talk about today, and they might think, oh, it's that fantasy world, right? So if you, I'm going to challenge you to part and remember that's showing up today from your little girl time,
mm,
right? And then also the African part, the build a bathtub, that's like probably just because what you're doing today, like helping women to, like I do, step into out from behind our armors that we wear and find
yeah,
that joy, right? So
yeah,
bathtubs are joyful.
yeah,
That's
it's
what
true.
I got. Yeah, that's what I got from it. And then of course the giraffes and elephants and all that certainly ties into where you're going in a month, right? Tanzania. But the other part that struck me, and I'm going to go to the last part in a second because I want to build on the last part that struck me, is a kindergarten teacher part.
Mm,
So my story, my little girl Pearl, she wanted to grow up and she wanted to be a teacher. But I didn't have great guidance counselors. I didn't
yeah,
have two parents that even, I had one parent who graduated high school and one got the
mhm,
GED. So I didn't have the guidance to go on and become this kindergarten teacher as well. I want to be a kindergarten teacher. However, you're doing what I say that I'm doing today. Think about it. All the little girls you would have taught in kindergarten, you're helping them today. That's how I look at it. All the little girls I might have had
correct.
at kindergarten, we're getting them today, right? Sylvia, we're getting them today. Like we're
Actually,
empowering them
yes.
today. Yeah.
Actually, yes, yes. And I still
Yeah.
love children. I have to say that. I still love them. Especially when I'm in Tanzania, I spend a lot of time with the Maasai children and everything. So yeah, it's still in me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's that kindred spirit, I think that, I mean, I'm 61 years old. Everybody's like, you're 61. I'm like, I think it's because I still had this. Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. You just did it.
No,
I appreciate you. But I tell everybody, I go, I think it's because I have this kindred little girl spirit
yeah,
in me that's why. Because I remember looking, every time I look in the mirror, I look like my mom. But I think about how my mom looked at 61 and she was unhappy. She was miserable. It was just
yeah,
not, not good because she was in the middle of a divorce with my father and, and things like that. They divorced after 43 years of marriage. So
yeah.
and her life has been like that ever since. And so, but I wanted to tell you that about the kindergarten teacher. And then I want to talk to you. I want to go to about being a lone born twin,
Mhm,
because like you said, you always had that feeling like something or
mhm,
somebody was missing, right?
yeah.
And I want to talk about that twin part for a second, because my son, who I have two boys, Nate and my son Matthew. Matthew, we lost 3 years ago in a tragic
Oh,
car
so
accident.
sad.
Yeah, I
Mm,
thank you. He had two of his best friends that they're always around us. They always come in. One actually works with my husband today, but they're twins. And they always tell me, oh, I know when so and so, I feel such and such. They can tell and feel things about
mm,
each other. Anthony, who I love to death, and he's listening to me. Hello, Anthony. He's always the one that wants to take care of little brother. But if I remember right, he came out second. Like it's
yeah,
interesting how he plays the oldest role, right?
yeah.
And so tell us about that. Like you talk about the melancholy part about that and that always feeling alone. Tell us about that. And when did it really hit you? And how old were you when you found out that you had another sibling?
Hmm. So, actually, as I said before, I didn't really know it for a long time, but I always had this feeling of something is missing, that I'm not complete, and also that I don't belong. So I always had this feeling I'm not in the right place. I didn't really fit in. I was never a part of a big group, these things were never missing, and I've always felt very drawn to twins. So this is something I always dreamed of, having twins myself one day. So this was the thing. And I struggled with melancholy. I had my phases of depression early on. So I really vividly remember my first depressive phase was when I was around 12, 13, where I really had bad thoughts. And so this was an on-off thing my whole life. And actually, I found out, and that's very funny, in 2020, the twin 2020, and then in February, it's also the two. So I had again a phase of depression. And then my mom, she looked at me and she said, "Listen, we have to go to this woman." And so she's basically a spiritual woman. And she looked at me and she said, "You're an alone born twin." And I was like, "Yeah, of course, crazy." I didn't believe it. And my mom, she went quiet, and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" And when we were in the car, she told me, "Yeah, actually, um, I remember when I was pregnant with you and I made the ultrasound in the 80s, long time ago. There were two dots in the beginning, and then one of the dots vanished all of a sudden. And so she said, it's absolutely, I believe it. And then I started to do the research, and it's called vanished twin syndrome. For example, Elvis Presley was also a lone born twin, but his twin brother, he died in the womb when his mom was 7 or 8 months pregnant, something like that. And with me, it was very early, so nobody saw it, nobody realized it, you know. But it's a very real thing for the people who experience it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've heard of it before, and about how I Chuck and I went through infertility treatments, and I remember when the first rounds, maybe second round, they were like, they told us we were pregnant, and then all of a sudden we weren't. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, your body
Yeah.
basically just sort of absorbs it, or something with our
Exactly.
body rejects it,
Mm,
absorbs it in. So it's definitely 100%. I knew that about Elvis Presley too. I'd actually forgotten about that with
yeah.
him, and all that. And so it totally goes to the realm of like having a feeling like the melancholy, like you're alone, because twins have these connections. I mean,
Yes.
I see it with, I've got other friends that are twins, but I see it with the boys, Anthony and Odo, and I see that connection and things. And like it's funny, I can tell them apart, but people are like, which one? I'm like, how can you not tell them apart? I think it's just because I've been around them so much. They say I'm their mom from another mother,
Yeah.
but so,
That's
but yeah, so I thank you for sharing that with us, and reminding us that those things do happen. And so tell us, like, so you've gone on this journey now. We've met little Sylvia, and now we've talked about your being a lone born twin. So tell us, like, how does that, like, as you went and you grew up and you've become this amazing adult that you are today, what led you to coaching? Because I can tell you, like, for me, like, for all of us, I think for most coaches, there's something that leads us to coaching, right? So when I did health and
mm,
wellness, that was a part of my journey, was that I wanted to help others with their health, and then it led
mm.
to the life coaching and stuff. So what was it that led you to coaching?
So actually it was, I think, this longing for purpose. So I was always looking, what can I do? So as I said before, first I was a kindergarten teacher because also my mom was a kindergarten teacher. And then I was like, no, it's not enough for me. I started to study business economics. Then I had my master's and I was in the human resource management. So I went the corporate ladder, you know, and I still felt so unhappy. Then I was thinking like, okay, maybe I should create my own business. So I created my own company in my consulting company. And I still was utterly unhappy. And then I told you 2020 was this first awakening for me. And then in 2022, again, I was so unhappy. I mean, I was feeling guilty because I was living and my twin sister was dead. And so I was really depressed again. And then we went for this holiday and I didn't really expect a lot. I was really unhappy. I had everything, beautiful house, whatever, but really unhappy. And then I met the Maasai people and they helped me to reconnect with myself. And all of a sudden, I was happy. I don't know what they did. It felt almost like a second reborn thing or a reborn thing. And yeah, so this was my second awakening, and I felt this calling all of a sudden that I want to share this with other people because we in the Western world, we are so disconnected from each other. We are disconnected from ourselves. If you ask people, what do you want? They cannot give you an answer because they just don't know. And they think, oh, I have to buy a Gucci bag. I have to buy this. I have to do this surgery and make myself beautiful. But actually, they never really love themselves. So I did my coaching accreditation, the ICF accreditation, and then I thought, yeah, I want to share this with other women because we women, we have to be more strong. And yeah, and then also the connection with the Maasai, where I met the Maasai women and I felt this special bond to them. They are so sweet and so lovely and have to endure so much and are still so positive. And so this was basically the initial thing to be a coach. Although I have to say, in human resource management and also in kindergarten, um, it's basically part of it. Yeah, you have to read the people, you give advice, you help them to grow. So it was basically always a part of my life. Yeah.
It's so powerful when it's that one shift, right, that can come in and
Mhm.
like empower our lives. It could be something, somebody, or it can be anything in our world that
Yeah.
changes at one shift. And to know that you are feeling like this alonement and trying to reconnect with yourself and purpose, like what's my purpose, and so we sometimes we get lost in that world. I was just talking with somebody before you and I got on, one of my clients I'm coaching, and we were talking about grief and how people don't understand grief is not just grieving somebody that lost. Yes, I lost my son and I miss him all the time, but grief is
Mm.
also other things. It could be grieving the health that I was, the person I
Yeah.
was, like before you knew you had a twin, right? So now you've got this twin. So now you're grieving the person you were before you knew, and now you know, and now you're grieving the twin, right? So it's like grief shows up differently. And we were talking about how um, I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast today, and there was a gentleman talking about grief and how we need to ask. Grief. You have to ask the question. Like he was talking about the chair, right? And I sat there, and it really hit me because I have a chair that my son used to sit in right in my living room downstairs. And I was like, that chair. But at that point, when I was sitting there looking at that, I'm like, that chair could be anything in your life. It could be the loss of knowing I had a twin. It could be the loss of who was I or where do I want to go. And it's understanding that grief shows up differently for people. And so to have a conversation with somebody and say, like I think in the episode he's talking about like how ask your mom, mom, tell me about like what is it like to sit across from that empty chair? What is it like? Ask me, what is it like to live your health the way you're living it today versus yesterday when you might have been walking around here as healthy as can be, and then it's different, right? So and I love what he said, be vulnerable and understand it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation because you may not know what to do with it and you can't fix it. That's the thing. We can't fix it. We cannot fix somebody's grief. It's their journey. It's not fixable. It's just to be there and be, how can I support you, right? And so having the catalyst of saying, this is, that Messiah, is that how you say it? How you say that,
The
Messiah?
Messiah.
Messiah, yeah, how they impacted your life helped you to start doing this healing and this process of becoming who you are and tying back into the little girl. And so walk us through, like, what were some of the small changes that you saw happen that led to bigger changes in your life?
So I have to say that what I learned or what I know now, because I had this third awakening, I will talk about this later, is that every phase of depression, every phase of pain I went through, that was actually a teacher for me, and it led me to something bigger, something that I understand now. And so when I met the Maasai, they showed me a completely new world. So I was coming from this, beautiful house here in Europe. I can go to the supermarket all the time. I have hot water all the time. I have a washing machine, which is super cool. And so I was there, and they wash with the hands, most of them, and they don't have a shower, so they have a bucket, and then they wash themselves. And sometimes they also sleep on the floor, which is completely normal for them because it's nothing in their houses. They have this it's like a floor, a mid floor or something like that, and they sleep on that. So it was a completely different world, but they were so happy despite having nothing. They were so happy, and they showed me their world. We went out together. We went to eat local food, and yeah, I don't know what happened, but after 2 weeks, oh, we went out to party a lot because to have to go to a party with the Maasai is really, I can recommend it. And after these 2 weeks, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go back. Really, I completely changed. I mean, like not a little bit. I was like, no second thoughts. And 2 months after that, I came back for 3 months and then six, and then, back and forth. And yeah,
And how long ago was that? Like, how long ago did you start that journey with them?
that was as my first journey to Zanzibar was in 2020. And in 23, in January, I went back. And so it's, yeah, 3 years. It's three
Okay.
years.
And how often do you go back? Because I know you said you get ready to go back in about a month, right? How often
Yeah.
do you go back and forth?
It always depends. So this year I spent 6 months in Tanzania. And when I came back, then also my grandmother died, which was also a coincidence because I went back actually a little bit less than 3 months, so 2.5 months, because I was invited to a wedding. And if it wasn't for that wedding, I wouldn't have been here when when my grandmother passed away. So I was able to see her again and to say goodbye. And I reconciled also with my sister. So my mom, my sister, and I, we have a really, really good relationship now. And yeah, so things just happen, because
Yeah.
of something like your grandmother passing away, which is very horrible, of course, because I loved her very much, but it's also a good thing. And I feel like she's always there protecting me. And we have even a stronger connection than before, if that makes sense. I don't know if people understand that, but yeah.
No, I think it makes total sense. I mean, when we become distant with family and we really want that relationship,
Mm.
I think it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally get it. I long for it. I've had to divorce my parents. Not only did they divorce themselves, but I had to divorce my parents because their narcissist or gaslighting ways
Mhm.
was harming me and harming my family. And it's like, that's not what I want for my life. And so, and people who are listening, I'm sure you're like other people say to me, well, they're your parents. You should. However, they're your family, they're your parents, whoever it is, they're your friends. The challenge is if that's not what you want ethically for your life, is not that's what you want around your life that brings you happiness and joy, then they have to go sit on the bench. And I had a priest tell me that. Father Bill said that to me years ago. I went to a retreat at church and I was struggling because my parents were in this divorce. And I felt like in my 40s, I felt like a little girl, like being pulled, and he literally said, it's your it's your ball game. He's like, you like football, right? I'm like, I love football. He's like, okay, too many men in the field. If they can't be one of the men in the field, they have to sit in the bench. And you can choose when they come back in. And if they choose to come back in with you
Mm.
and they can't follow your rules of the game, they sit back on the bench. And, unfortunately, I mean, and I'm a daddy's girl. Let me just tell you something. I was such a daddy's girl. I would love for my
Mhm.
dad to be, but but
So
the
beautiful.
narcissist ways and those behaviors, they can't. But when you
Yeah.
can reconcile, like you said, when something like that beautiful happens, it's amazing what, it's beautiful. And I love to hear those stories because we want that family around us. I was very, very blessed. I have amazing in-laws. My whole husband's family is just like my family, and I'm very, very blessed that they became family to me as we got married. And so having that feeling of belonging and people who love you is so powerful. And the little girl in me misses her mom and dad. I mean, my parents' phone number is not blocked on my phone just because I just like, if they were a call or whatever,
If
it's
they're
there.
coming.
Yeah, but the challenge is like last week, my dad, my parents would have had their anniversary about a week ago, and the night before, this is how bad of a gaslighter my dad is. The night before, he texts me and says, "Oh, I'm dying of this cancer, that cancer," and I'm like, "Oh, like you were in 2015?" Because 10 years ago, that's
So
what you
you
said.
said, mm,
Yeah. And so I realized what it was. The next morning when I woke up, I'm like, why did he do that out of the blue? And I realized, oh, it's my parents. It would have been my parents' anniversary. So he was
so you want
hoping to
attention.
grab my attention and I get my mom. And I literally said, well, I'm sorry to hear that about you. And my father does not have a faith belief. And I said, so when you do get to heaven, I hope that God helps you find forgiveness for yourself. And, I've forgiven you for your behavior, and so back to what you were saying, like how you help
Yeah.
people, it's like releasing those armors and finding that joy for ourselves.
But I just wanted to mention something big about my grandmother. So in the last, yeah, 2, 3 years when I was in Africa, she didn't understand me, and we had fights, and we had really big issues. There were some family stuff, and where I think that I was allowed to talk about it, even if it was about her mom and so. And she was really angry with me, and we had not a, I mean, we had a good relationship, but it was a little bit rocky in the end. And so last 2 weeks ago, I had this. So I was cooking something, preparing something, completely off with everything, and then all of a sudden, I had this feeling that she's here and that she's hugging me, and then she told me, "Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't understand you. I couldn't because and this earthly life didn't allow me to understand it. But now I see clearly. Now I know, and I'm so sorry. And go for it, do it." I protect you. I love you. And I'm so happy that you reconciled with your sister and that with your mom, everything is fine. And she said, we women, we have to stick together. And she's there. And I started to cry like a baby, not because of
Oh,
grieving, but it was just so beautiful. And yeah, so,
yeah,
this is why I say
I
the
I
connection is
love the
stronger.
I love those stories, Sylvia, because I truly wholeheartedly believe in them
Yeah.
like coming and like validating us and things like that. I mean, since my son's passed, it's been 3.5 years. Like
Mm.
I know when he's around, I know when he's being
Yeah.
quiet, I
I
know
feel
when
that.
he's going, hey, get going, and so I know and feel all that. And I love that you got that from your grandmother because it's so validating. And I saw you just light up and felt
Yeah.
that love from her come through. And I think it's amazing. I just think it's amazing. So you go back and forth to, Tanzania and where you
Mm.
are. And so how are you helping? Like, how are you, like your clients, like, how do they find you? How are you helping them? And like, what are some of the stories you see that your women that you work with, that they overcome?
Yeah. So I'm working, as I said before, with mainly women. I mean, I do coach men as well, but I feel like a lot of men, they sometimes they don't understand the line between I want to help you and I like you, so they start to flirt with me, which I don't like. Um, and yeah, I feel some men are not as open as the women with their spirituality and working on themselves. So what I see a lot, especially in women, is that they have so many hats they have on, so many roles that they have to fulfill. Mom, wife, you have to be a good lover in bed, and you have to be good employee, and you have to be this and that and that, so that they forget who they are, what are they, what do they like, and they struggle a lot in their relationships. They don't have these really meaningful connections. They cross their boundaries a lot. So I help them to reconnect with themselves. Self-love is a really big issue. Setting boundaries, communication, because what I've learned in Tanzania with the Maasai and with the people in Tanzania is that you have to go to the base. But when you communicate with somebody, we in the Western world, we think we assume that the people around us, they know what we think and they are in our head because we are coming from the same culture, but that's not the case. Everyone has their own reality, so we have to go back down to the first base and explain our thoughts, our whatever. And this is something that I have learned with the Maasai because, for example, when I make a joke about Friends, they don't understand me because they never saw the show. They have no TV. They don't have these things. So go down, explain everything, explain how you feel, how your reality is, and don't expect so much in communication. So these are the parts that I'm focusing on in this area of my coaching. And then there's this new area. I hope we can talk later, a little bit later on. Yes.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to talk about that next. So
Mhm.
I love what you said. Explain my reality,
Yeah.
right? Explain the reality because, like you said, women, we wear so many, I call it armor, hats, everything you described. We feel like and we think that that's what we're supposed to do because generationally, that's what we were brought up.
Yeah.
Our grandmothers, their mothers, all the way down. You can go back 4 or 5 generations. It was the wife took care of everything, right? So she did everything. And so I'm like, for me, my mom, when my dad was in the Marines, he was off at war for 3 different times. So my mom was having to juggle home life and she had to work. So
Yeah.
I stepped in like third grade and that's how I became a people pleaser, because, oh, mom and dad say I have to
Yeah.
take care of. So I'm taking care of my brother and sister. And
And
then
you're
as
the
I
girl.
yeah,
You're the
I'm
girl.
the
You
girl,
have to
right?
do that.
I'm the
Yeah.
oldest, and exactly all these,
Yeah.
these things that we put on each other. And then after I met my husband, and for 10 years we tried to have kids. So 10 years later, when we adopted our son Matthew, I was like, oh, so God made me wait 10 years. Now I need to put off my hat for Pearl and put on my hat for these titles. And it wasn't until he was a rising senior in high school, so almost 12 years, that I was like, where the heck am I at? I got to figure this out because I'm more than just the mom and wife and volunteer. And so, like you said, I went on this journey to figure out who I was. And, that's where I actually started a Shiro method.
And the
Go ahead.
thing is also something I learned from the Maasai. I mean, I'm pro empowerment, women empowerment and everything. But I feel like we are not meant to do everything by ourselves. And I feel like if you are choosing a child, it's so important that the child is with you. This is just my opinion. If somebody thinks different, it's okay. But I feel like we have lost in the Western world because we put our kids so early in the kindergarten, in the school, or in whatever system we have. And we, because we have to go to work. Yeah, it's not a question, of course. But I see with the Maasai how connected they are, and they have this self-love. There's never a question, do you like yourself? And this is because they are with their moms, with their families all the
Right.
time from early on, and they then separate when they are 10. They go out with the cows. And I feel like that this is also something that has changed our society, because we women, we have to go to work, so the kids go to school, go to kindergarten or whatever, and they
Yeah.
are not connected with that. And I think we take away a little bit of this bond and this grounding from the get-go. And it's just my opinion. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And there's a lot to be said about that. The other thing too is like we think we have to do everything. And I came up with the word CEO mom because my sister-in-law, I went to go visit her one time, and my nephew, who was like not even in kindergarten, I don't think at the time, she's like, "Hey, Sean's gonna go put his clothes away. You want to come up with us?" And I'm like, "Sean's gonna put his clothes away?" She was teaching him this is a team. Like this is our house is a business, our family's a business.
Yeah,
We have
you
to
can
do things
together.
together. I
Mhm.
thought that was so powerful. And that's why you talk about explaining reality. That's reality. That's what we should be teaching our kids. I
Yeah.
just read an article here in the States that, you know, we became this society where everybody had to get the trophy, right? I watched that after my kids were growing, and I'm like, there's a lot to be said about not always winning, right? And then last night or this morning I got up and we have what's here for our college football players, there's what's
Mhm.
called the Heisman Trophy, right? So this one gentleman, this one young man, he didn't win it. So now he's mad that he didn't win it, and he thinks it's because this or that. I don't even want to get to what he thinks it's the
And
reasons
it's not
why.
important.
But but I'm like, that's what I said. I go, it's not important. The thing was,
Yeah.
somebody felt this person won, and when I looked at this age or thing, again, it goes back to that. Well, everybody got the trophy. I should be getting the trophy, right?
Yeah.
So the society. That's I like what you said. The Messiah, like we have to like embrace like the love that we have for our kids and not rush them into the
The
world of like
system.
even like
Mhm.
social media and everything. Like I'm
Yeah, it's
watching
not
kids
good.
are on at 2, 3 years old on phones. I'm like, why? Like,
And
that's a
this
whole
is
other thing.
exactly, and the Maasai, they share everything. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they have multiple wives. So one man can have a few wives if he has enough money, and they share everything. And I'm like, are you not jealous? And they were not like, no, because then one is taking care of the kids while the other one is cooking or doing this or doing, and it's really like the whole village is taking care and working together, and they share it, and then they have also more fun because they go out together and wash the clothes, or get the water or whatever. And
Right.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a deeper connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And we
that's
lost that.
amazing. So I we have about 10 minutes left together.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the other part of your coaching that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to tell the audience, like, listen, we're going to share something that Sylvia's going to share with us that she's come into. And interesting enough, I'm seeing this movement about this subject we're going to talk about. And if you're listening, you may not agree with it, and that's fine. Whatever works for you and your self-care
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing. And I want people to come on and share like different things because we all know different things for different people. So share with us a new part of your coaching that you're doing.
Yeah. So as I said before, I was always struggling with depression, and I had these two awakenings before, twin sister, Maasai. And in the last year, actually really 2025, also the end of 24, I came into this bad phase again, although everything was better, but again, it got downhill. And yeah, in September, October, November, I was like, I really didn't want to live anymore. I was having I think the worst phase of depression in my whole life. And so my mom again, she said to me, you have to do something. So go to a doctor. And I said to her, no, I don't want to take these antidepressants because I tried them one time. I got headache and I didn't feel like myself. So I did research, and then I remembered I saw this podcast of this woman. She was talking about the magic mushrooms and the psilocybin. Then I was looking into there's a Netflix show and they were talking about that too. So I got into that realm. And it's like when you do microdosing of psilocybin, it actually is working underneath your unconsciousness, very very soft and very slowly and very yeah, in a good way. And so I ordered the truffles. The truffles are also legally in Austria, and I started to take them. You don't feel nothing when you take them. And I started to feel better after 2 weeks. And I was like, because the psilocybin is basically mixing up your brain and quieting the default mode network, which is responsible for all the negative self-talk, the negative thoughts, all these old patterns, that you have when you get older. And I felt so much better, but then I realized, okay, it's not enough. I want to go deep. I want to understand, why am I so depressed? What is the problem? I felt, this calling. So yeah, I took a higher dose. I took 4 grams of this psilocybin mushrooms, and I didn't have this fancy trip like they have in the movies with seeing beautiful things or something like that. No, but it did what it should do. It brought me back to my childhood. It brought me into my unconsciousness, and I resolved everything. I realized I haven't been seen, or I didn't feel seen by my mom when I was small. So I made myself small. I didn't love myself. I had this guilt also because of my twin sister. And so I cried, and it was really, I resolved so much. So that, and then I thought, yeah, now it's over, it's finished. So because it was not a lot. And then all of a sudden I came into this other realm, and it was on another, yeah, level. And I realized that yeah, I mean, that sounds maybe stupid, but I'm a star seed, so I have this alien soul basically, and they told me everything, like I'm meant to step into my power now. I had to endure all this because now I understand the people, now I understand pain, and I'm not getting arrogant, and I understand them in a different way. And I also realized that my twin sister has never left me, actually. She's always been with me as my shield and as my protector. And I always had also this woman, she told me back then, you are protected. And I never really understood it. And this was so eye-opening. And I felt so much love like I've never had before. And that led me to my now calling. I'm a psychedelic integration coach, so I want to help people who had the same experience to integrate that into their lives, because when you realize all these beautiful things, you are in this high, and you are so euphoric, but then of course you have to integrate it into real life. And that can be very difficult, very challenging, especially when you're not from the field of coaching, and when you don't know how to do these kind of things. So yeah, this is what I'm offering now as well. Yeah.
So I think what and you asked, Sylvia asked before we came on, are you okay if we talk about this? And here's what I
Yeah.
said to Sylvia. I believe we all find what helps and works for us to
Yeah.
get us through and overcome the thoughts that we have. I mean, my son Matthew, he struggled with being adopted. He struggled with belonging. He
Yeah.
struggled with so many things that led to alcoholism and stuff like that. And he tried, like you said, he tried different things through therapists and things like that. And it either brought bad thoughts to him or didn't make him feel well, and so there's so many different things that are available now. And I think here in the States, what I heard recently, Sylvia, and don't quote me on it if you're listening, but I believe I heard that the FDA here in the States is starting to approve the mushroom as well as a
Yeah.
form of
It's
therapy.
coming.
Yeah.
It's coming because there is so much evidence that the psilocybin, especially with the microdosing, I still do microdosing because you cannot do a trip every day. That's not working.
Yeah.
But I do the microdosing, and it's so good for depression or for anxiety because it's very soft, and it's going in the unconscious, and you don't feel nothing actually, and you
Right.
start to realize a change in your thoughts and in your mood after a few days, like a week or something like that. And you really
Right.
start to feel something after 2 weeks. But then it's
Right.
also it's a long-term thing. And I saw studies that show that the psilocybin helps even more than the antidepressants, because they
That's
also
amazing.
protect the nerves. They are helping you with neuroplasticity, so they help you create new pathways in your brain, and make your change long lasting. And this is also why integration coaching is so important, because of the psilocybin, it mixes up your brain and how you're thinking. And then when you do this integration coaching, you can make these pathways, these new pathways, in a much easier way than when you don't take
Right.
the psilocybin. And it's so cool. It's such a good thing.
I
Send
love that. I'm excited to watch how this grows for you. I'm excited
Yeah.
to be part of your world and see how that all comes together. So we're winding down the show. So tell everybody, and we'll put everything in the show notes if you want to reach out to Silvia about what she's sharing with you today. But tell everybody how they can reach you, Silvia.
So I still have my homepage, this info, simple minus life minus journey.com. I mean, I will share everything with you. So there you have all my contacts. I will have my new homepage. It's called after minus or hyphen awakening.com. So after hyphen awakening.com. And of course, in the social medias, they will find me. I will send you the links. And yeah, just send me a message or whatever. If you're interested in Tanzania, I do projects there as well to help the Maasai, my coaching. So if you need guidance on anything I've talked about today, just contact me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to put all that in the show notes and
Mhm.
make sure we can see it and follow along. And if anything resonated with you, please reach out to Sylvia. And just remind you that we do something at the end of every show, and that's our cards, our Better Questions, Better Life cards. So
I
Sylvia,
love
you
it.
tell me when to stop shuffling, and we'll read what your card is. So here we go. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, so your card says, how do I shine my light? How do you shine your light?
So my awakening gave me my mission, and that is to be a bridge between the heavens and the earth, which means the spiritual realm and the grounding Maasai thing. And this is how I share my light, because this is, I think, it's authentic. It's who I am. It's what I do, and yeah, that's how I do it.
And if you're listening, go watch on YouTube because you just lit up when you just said that today. That's
Yeah,
definitely, you definitely were shining and sharing that.
yeah,
And I love to share that. And for me, the way I shine my light is to do the shows like I'm doing here today. Also I'm realistically honest with my
yeah,
audience. Like when I go through things, if you follow me on Instagram and all the social media areas, you'll see that I'm very honest. I am who I am. I have people come to me that want to coach with me and they've coached before. And I'm like, so what about me? And they're like, because you don't sugarcoat anything and you live
yeah,
life and you show it, right? And so that's being our authentic self is so, so powerful. So I want to thank you for coming today. I want to thank you for joining us. And to the audience that's listening and watching, thank you for being part of our world. I know that life gets busy and gets overwhelmed, but if you are done wearing all your titles and you are tired of showing up for everybody else and feel like, where are you at in your story? I want you to reach out to me at wsliving.com. That's wsliving.com. And let's chat. Book a clarity call with me today. Let's figure out your joy and teach you how to start walking in it. Because I do believe we come into this world as this rough oyster on the outside. But as you open up that oyster, you're going to find your inner pearl to greatness so you can become stronger, happier, empowered, radiant, and original in your life. I hope you have an amazing day and go become a great Shiro that you are. That was so fun. Sylvia, I want to thank you so much for coming on and for joining us. And to you, the listeners, and those who are watching us on YouTube, thanks for joining our world. I know life gets busy and overwhelming, but I want to thank you for taking time out for yourself. And as Sylvia shared earlier, whatever way you can get back into your life, there we go, I'm going to spit that out. But whatever way you can explain your reality and live your reality, that makes you show up for yourself. That's what I want you to do. And I hope that you got some of that today out of the show. And again, if you are struggling and don't know where to tap into your joy, all you have to do is follow the banner below, book a call with me, or go to wsliving.com and let's connect and let's help you clarify and get clarity on your joy. Have a great day.